example, what are peptide loops? So let's say you have a narcissistic parent and they trash the house, right? They never clean it up ever, and you're the one that's usually keeping everything tidy and you're picking up, right? And they know this because who else would be doing it, you know? But then maybe one day you're not feeling well. And so you don't pick up the house. You don't do the usual. And then they come down and they see that there's a mess that you didn't put away. And then all of a sudden, they're blaming you for being lazy and never cleaning up the home, right? And you never do this and you never do that. Meanwhile, they're the ones that actually never do it, right? Like they literally don't do it, but you're the one that usually does it. And the one time that you don't do it, they're making a big scene out of it. That can put you in a peptide loop, right? Because then your brain is like, wait a second, this person lives in this home. They know that they don't get up and put the dishes away. They know that I do it every single day. And so the one day that I don't do it, they suddenly accuse me of never cleaning up the home. Why would anybody say that? That's just irrational, right? Has anything similar happened to you like that in a dynamic with a narcissist?
Um, hmm. I mean, I feel like it's not just relatives that happens with. I feel like sometimes it also happens with, just random people that I run into. You know what I mean? Sometimes someone will just randomly say something, something nasty, maybe, and then you're like thinking about it for the rest of the day. So is that kind of what a peptide loop would be?
Yeah, that can be. But what that speaks to more is that your brain is conditioned and primed to go into peptide loops. If it can happen out and about like that, that's an indication that your brain is used to being in peptide loops. So to me, that would speak to what your childhood looked like. And to me, I would say he was probably raised in a narcissistic family dynamic, if that's the case. Um, but that is an example of one. But really what's happening is your brain then just gets stuck. It starts looping and it just starts trying to figure this out, and it's trying to get the resolve. And those are peptides that are released through your thoughts. And so this is a huge, huge way that narcissists get you hooked to them. And so if you've ever been in a dynamic with a narcissist, whether it's a friend, a coworker, a boss, your partner, your romantic partner, a parent, a sibling, whoever it is, and you know that they're toxic, you know that they're not good for you, but you feel hooked. You feel hooked to them, like you are drawn to them, you're magnetized to them, even though you know better. This is the peptide loops. This is the peptide loop that they've activated in your system. So whether they know it or not, which I don't know if they're conscious of this, I would be interested to see if they are consciously aware that they're doing this. But somehow they've learned to basically tap into your biofeedback systems and hack those. And it draws you into them, and that's what they depend on. And so a lot of people don't realize that it's their thoughts and their emotions that are keeping the narcissist in their life.
So it sounds like it takes a lot of energy to keep up with those peptide loops, constantly thinking about them. That's like a lot of your attention, that's a lot of your thoughts. Um, so what's a way to, break out of these peptide loops?
Yeah, it is very energetically taxing, right? And that's what narcissists do, is they kind of hijack your nervous system. They hijack all of these energetic mechanisms happening in your system. And so to override that takes quite a bit of awareness, discipline, repetition, right? But you can start doing that little by little, because you're not going to be able to override this dynamic overnight, especially if you've been raised by narcissists and this is like your nervous system blueprint. So it's going to be different for every person depending on their histories with narcissists. But what you can do is you have to start with small boundaries for yourself. So, something that I would do when I would be stuck in peptide loops with narcissistic characters in my life is I would want to sit down and I would want to vent about that person. I'd want to complain to somebody and be like, I cannot believe that this person did this, said this, and just get that out, right? Because that's pent up energy and aggression and frustration that I have. And it feels good to get that out. But what you're doing is you're kind of feeding that peptide loop. And so you have to get to where you can set boundaries with yourself and how much time and energy you're giving to these topics. So for example, if I feel the need to vent because I just had like an interaction with a narcissist and I'm all revved up over it, I want to allow myself the space to release that and kind of vent about it, but I don't want to prolong it. And so what I suggest to do is set like 5 to 10 minutes, like a 5 minute boundary, 10 minute boundary, whatever works for you. And say, okay, I'm going to give myself this amount of time to vent, get my feelings out, but then I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop this and I'm going to pivot to a different topic, totally unrelated, and start redirecting that energy away from that narcissist or that topic. And that's going to start breaking that loop, and you're not going to feed it anymore at that point. And so it's going to take conscious awareness to shift that. So, small, manageable boundaries that you can put in place with yourself. And same with your thought patterns. If you notice that you just keep thinking about this person, you can't get them out of your head, you keep seeing images of it. When you notice that that's happening, you have to consciously try to find another topic or start doing something else, engaging in some sort of activity where your focus is being redirected. And that can sound like distracting yourself, which it's similar, but it's necessary to actually distract your thought stream away from the peptide loop. And so the more that you can do this consciously, the more that it's going to become inherent.
Okay, so last question. I think before somebody can, set boundaries with themselves and redirect themselves, I think they have to identify that they're in a peptide loop in the first place, right? So I think that's the first step. So how does someone identify a peptide loop?
Wow, that's a really good question. To identify that you're in a peptide loop, first, I think you have to be able to acknowledge like this person has a negative impact on me consistently, right? Like you have consistency, that consistent negative impact is key because we all sometimes negatively impact each other. But if you have a person that's just chronically toxic and they start to have an impact on you when you're around them and you feel that you're bringing this home, you really have to examine that, right? And become aware of how you're feeling and what you're thinking. And you have to catch that. And so if you notice, like, oh my gosh, I just keep thinking about this person. And now I'm all stressed out. Now I'm all pissed off. And now I want to go cope with that by scrolling on my phone or drinking or whatever it is. It's usually if you have this chronic stress and this chronic emotional impact, and you start developing this desire to escape that and cope with that, that's a huge indicator that you're in a peptide loop with somebody because you're not grounded, right? You can't leave a situation from somebody and just leave it there. You bring it home with you, you take it with you wherever you go, even when that person is long gone, right? And so those are kind of the signs that you're in a peptide loop. I would just say I think that this is important to understand because this is what keeps us in dynamics with narcissists. And so understanding how you contribute to that dynamic will help you get out of the dynamics in general and attract less narcissists to yourself. So I think that it's important because most of us, we want to be healthy. We want to be happy. We want healthy, supportive relationships. And a lot of people keep finding themselves caught up with narcissists. This is a big reason why.